unfortunately, the situation on the ground, the situation on the front lines is very different than the way it's being presented by these analysts who don't have anything to lose in this process.
When I came in and we were looking at $89, $90, $95, and by the way, that helps us solve the war too. Having those energy prices is a big incentive for Russia to also agree with solving the war problem. Groceries are down. When I was with you 2 months ago, you were complaining about eggs. I said I just got here. I've been here for about a week when the press started saying about eggs have gone through the roof. I said I just got here. Tell me about eggs, and they happened. They went through the roof, and you couldn't get them. So we just had a big Easter egg hunt at the White House. Thousands and thousands of eggs.
You know how expensive the eggs were? So expensive. So expensive. All right, so those are some of the highlights from this idiotic back and forth that he had in the White House, standing next to the Prime Minister of Norway. But here is, of course, a major update on China trade talks as Donald Trump takes multiple questions in the aftermath. So we're going to take a look at this as well. This was earlier in the day before the last round of questions and answers. Oh, look, that close up. He really does look like that pig photo. You know, the pig eye photo? He does straight up look like that. It's crazy.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor to have the highly respected, the great Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Norway with us today, who, as you know, has been doing a fantastic job and truly respected throughout the world as a leader. And thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. And we're going to be having a meeting in the Oval Office in a little while where you'll be invited back and you can ask some questions. It's also a pleasure to have my friend who did such a good job at NATO, my great friend, right? So you really did. We started off, they had no money, and they ended up having a lot of money after we said, you got to pay up. But you did a fantastic job, and thank you very much. And I'm glad you're here. Glad we meet each other again under these circumstances. So we'll be meeting in a little while at the Oval Office, and if you have maybe one or two questions, we'll do it now. And after that, we'll go to the Oval.
Mr. President, on Russia, do you still believe that Putin is serious about peace, given the events overnight in Ukraine? And if that bombing doesn't end, are you considering new sanctions on Russia?
So we are thinking that very strongly that they both want peace. But they have to get to the table. We're waiting a long time. They have to get them to the table, and I think we're going to get peace. We want to save 5,000 young people. I used to say 2,500. I now say 5,000. We have, Mr. Prime Minister, we have about 5,000 young people a week that are dying in that ridiculous war. And, you know, I started out because I didn't like all the money that we were paying, and then I realized how many people were dying. And that's by far the more important element right now. I'm saying we can save thousands of people. I don't like that it takes long at all, but I think they both want to make peace. I do believe so. There's a lot of hatred there. There's a lot of very bad blood, a lot of distrust. But I hope we're going to get there for the sake of a lot of young people that are dying.
Has Ukraine ever reached out to non-NATO Eastern European countries that have a similar relationship with Russia at the moment, like Georgia, to join the war in solidarity? I'm not pro-war, but there's no ceasefire armistice. Ukraine will have needed boots on the ground helping them. Are they just cooked? As far as Ukraine goes, I've said this before. There are a couple options on the table, okay? Either you take the shittiest deal of all time, led by Donald Trump, the shittiest deal maker of all time, where you basically sell off your natural resources and allow Russia to permanently annex Eastern Ukrainian territories, maybe move into an insurgency battle later down the line to make it costly for the Russian occupation to the best of your ability as you train, troops and whatnot and engage in acts of insurgency, right? Which is what I suspect is the, I guess, in all of the shittiest options of all time, this is the best possible option that is in front of Ukraine, right? This is the one that at least the Trump administration is putting forward. The other options in terms of like continuing the war are as follows. One, Ukraine says no to this deal. America removes its support for Ukraine. European allies try to make up for the demand in weapons. It's not going to work. And in that process, they lose out even more territory because they don't have a standing military that can withstand further Russian incursion. Now, if that's what's going to happen, there's a couple different things that the European partners could do, right? One, Ukraine lowers the age of conscription from, as they did from 27 to 25, they lowered even further to 18, basically eroding its future, destroying its future in its entirety, right? They lower the conscription to 18, more forcible conscriptions take place. There's already a lot of issues with deserters and corruption in the front lines. Why do you hate Ukraine and Kamala and love Trump and Russia? It's because I'm agent of Krasnov. All right. So Ukraine lowers the age of conscription, and on top of that, Ukraine will go to the United States of America and also Europe to forcibly deport Ukrainian men, like able-bodied Ukrainian men that could be serving in the Ukrainian defense, and they ship them off back to Ukraine by force using ICE or their internal immigration enforcement agencies. And they ship them back to Ukraine and force them to fight. Or there is another nuclear option, and none of these, by the way, are guaranteed to deliver any sort of emancipatory victory for the Ukrainian state. Okay. Another option is to disband NATO so that there is no, or I guess like maybe revoke Article 5. I don't know if you can even do that. If the European states actually wanted to truly defend Ukraine, they would need to send their own personal military to Ukraine. But as it stands, they can't send their personal military to Ukraine. There's many issues with that to begin with. There's not a lot of troops. There's not a lot of combat readiness for a lot of European countries in general. But like Ukraine needs manpower, right? They need manpower. You say, what about mercenaries? Well, they have already done that. There's a foreign legion, right? A lot of people have volunteered to go and fight in Ukraine. It's not enough. Clearly, that's not enough. So what needs to happen, what would need to happen in this process is basically like standing militaries and special forces from European countries to go and fight at the behest of Ukraine to defend to push back Russia from Ukraine, to deliver a striking blow, to deliver an actual blow to Russia that says Russia has, to force Russia to concede, okay, to change the dynamic of the battlefield as it currently stands. Now, that is also complicated. Part of the reason why it's complicated is because that opens up Russia to attacking European infrastructure, to opens up Russia into directly going to war with a lot of these European nations, right? And as it stands, while Russia being a nuclear nation, as it stands, Russia does engage in nuclear brinksmanship. And also on top of that, given that these are NATO nations, currently, Article 5 would be triggered if there are direct American or European NATO nation troops inside of Ukraine fighting against Russian troops. So that's why I said the other option in this circumstance would be to, like, I guess, revoke Article 5 or to disband NATO and then send European troops into Ukraine to defend Ukraine, to push back Russia. But in the absence of all of these options, the major problem that exists for Ukraine is a lack of manpower. It's not just that there aren't enough weapons in the hands of Ukrainian soldiers. That certainly is a factor as well, right? We offloaded a bunch of our old refurbished gear and weapons we dumped it into Ukraine, and very slowly allowed Ukraine to use more and more equipment over time, readjusting it to Russian nuclear brinksmanship. We just pushed and pulled at times. And while on the one hand, those weapons did allow the Ukrainian defense to actually push back Russia from Kyiv to eastern territories, it's still not enough. It clearly did not. It clearly did not save Ukraine, because Russia then hardened their positions on the eastern territories, right? That's the situation on the ground. And any number of different analysts that tell you, like, no, drone warfare changes the dynamic greatly, or, we just need one final push. Those guys have been saying that. Those guys have been saying that since day one. But unfortunately, the situation on the ground, the situation on the front lines is very different than the way it's being presented by these analysts who don't have anything to lose in this process and might even stand to gain if they are, I don't know, directly doing propaganda for the military-industrial complex. But what, in my opinion, completely stopped this or completely changed the dynamic and made the Ukrainian position impossible to defend was the counteroffensive, the spring counteroffensive, right? Like once that fell apart, it was over. That's what I think was the biggest blow for Ukrainian defense. And since then, they've been in a holding pattern as Russia has hardened its positions. They've dug into the eastern territories. They've mined a whole bunch of these areas as well with landmines, not like mining as an extraction. And so now it's at a fucking stalemate. It's at a stalemate. Russia has annexed these territories. They've like done these sham trials or these sham in some of these places they've done these like sham democratic processes to be like, do we own these territories? Yes, whatever. After purging those territories of the, Ukrainian people. So, yeah, referendums. Sorry, fake elections and fake referendums, and like different than even Crimea. Okay, it's cooked. It's totally cooked. So if you don't make up for the lack of manpower on the Ukrainian side, you just can't do anything about it. And that requires a tremendous amount of hardship with no real guarantees of permanent security for Ukraine. And I don't even know if a lot of Ukrainians have appetite for this continued battle. And I'm not just talking about the NGO people that you hear from that don't have to fucking serve in the military, and their job is to literally tell you over and over again, no, Ukrainians have tremendous appetite to continue the fucking war, and we just want to do it. When obviously the front lines reflect a very different reality, because like you get to hear from some of the people that are complaining, and you get to see some of the images out of Ukraine in Western Ukraine where people are like evading the draft to the best of their ability because they don't want to fucking go into the front lines. They don't want to get killed. So don't listen. Like, yeah, if you listen to the Atlantic Council back people, like, yeah, of course they're like, no, they want to keep fighting. They have so much appetite for fighting. And anyone that tells you like Ukraine is experiencing like desertions or corruption in the front lines is lying to you. They're like a fucking paid Russian operative or whatever. Yeah, there's their job. They don't have to serve. They get to fucking make this argument to the West, presenting a false reality to Westerners and deluding them into thinking that there is still, without making severe changes, there's still a way out of this through fighting.
Deadline for when the party?
I have my own deadline. And we want it to be fast. And the Prime Minister is helping us. He wants it to be fast too. And I think everybody in this, at this time in NATO, they want to see this thing happen. So we have a deadline, and after that, we're going to have a very much different attitude. But I think that has a very good chance of getting done.
Ukrainian here, people were looking to Trump to fast track this stuff. Guess they were in for a surprise. I'm a 25 male ready to be drafted, by the way. Are you in Ukraine?
Important ally to the U.S. What can Norway do?
Just keep doing what they're doing. We have a very good relationship with Norway. Great leader, great people. I know many of the people in Norway. And it's truly it's an incredible country. So all they have to do is keep doing what they're doing, I think, is probably the best answer I can give. Yes.
As you pointed out, the former Secretary General of NATO is here, Mr. Stoltenberg. How important is the NATO defense alliance, Mr. President? Is it sacrosanct from your perspective?
Yo, Central Committee, thank you for the raid. Hope you had a good one.
Very important for Europe, and I think without us it wouldn't be as nearly as powerful. And as the former Secretary General, who did a great job, can tell you, I played when I was there a very big role in making sure that NATO is funded by the 28, at that time they had 28 countries, including us, because many of the countries weren't paid, and they ended up being paid, you would say, and the Secretary General was very nice about it.
Come here.
As far as I was concerned. Other presidents went in, they made a speech, and they left.
And
that kept going on, and in the meantime, they had no money. And the United States was paying far more than its fair share. You could say that they were paying, I actually said sometimes it looked like 100%, and it was unfair. And the two of us worked very well together, and we took care of the situation.
There are some countries, Mr. President.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
As the regional statistics are showing that the U.S. actually has a trade surplus with Norway, are you going to be looking into that and see which of the countries are actually in a trade surplus?
Yeah, well,
Literally saw a guy today caught. Damn, brother, you got to get the fuck out of there. I don't mean to tell you, but I mean, I don't mean to tell you something you already know, but goddamn, dude. There are a lot of people that are, I mean, people that have money in Ukraine are getting out illegally to the, in order not to. Why didn't you help them? What are you, fucking crazy? And then have himself get drafted? What are you, insane? Yes, by caught, he means forced conscription. Yes. To illustrate the situation, the way the recruitment is trying to make up for lack of manpower is what locals are calling, what? Bussification, where they literally snatch able-bodied men from the streets and civilians seeking to avoid them. This is what the chatter was talking about. Yeah, it's scary shit in Ukraine right now. In Western Ukraine as well. I don't know about bussification. I don't know if that's what it's called, but yeah, there is as things get more desperate, the government will take more aggressive action. Imagine not wanting to defend the country you live in from an attacker. Yeah, I can imagine that, actually. I don't know why chatters in here are like, nah, not me, dude. I'll be different. Like, what are you talking about? You didn't make this happen. I think I think that's perfectly just. Justice is perfectly just if you want to actually go and fight, You have every right to do so. You also have every right to fucking evade the draft. What are you talking about? Do you have this kind of attitude for all of the Ukrainian refugees that live in the United States of America, that live in Canada right now? What do you think they're doing here? It's real easy to say this from wherever the fuck you're at, to be like, hey, dude living in Lviv, okay? 25-year-old, graphics designer living in fucking Lviv. Hey, go die, okay? Yes, fight for your country. Don't listen to Hasan and roll over for Russia. I mean, the alternative is Russian execution because it's your fucking home. Yes, whenever someone attacks your home, just leave. Bad take. No, I'm saying that if you want to fight, there's honor in that, certainly. But it also makes total fucking sense if you don't want to. And no, it's not. You can't compare this to Vietnam unless you're talking about the North Vietnamese army. Okay, because the Ukrainians are the ones who are fighting against an invading force. I am not going to sit here from my fucking ivory tower in the United States of America and tell people, yeah, just go die, Lamau. I don't have this attitude at all. I don't have this attitude towards Palestinians who don't want to engage in armed resistance against the state of Israel. And I don't have this attitude towards Ukrainians either. Some of you Americans living in the fucking lap of luxury have a totally warped perspective of what war looks like for the average person. That to me is ridiculous. Yeah, it's easy to just like sit in the United States of America and demand that Ukrainians die to protect their homeland. Why don't you go die for them then? This ain't a fucking movie, dude. Or are you crazy?
But with the United States, almost everybody has a surplus. It's really an amazing.
Stop being a pussy
phenomenon.
hypocrite.
No,
Wait, what? This is not hypocritical. I just described to you that this is absolutely something I believe across the board. I survived the longest siege of the city in modern time, and people were fleeing and nobody had an attitude against them. Yeah, what the fuck? Even after 3 years of service, my brother-in-law can't get a visa to come to Canada where his wife and children are. So even after serving, you can get trapped in the country. Yeah, they are recycling people who have already gone out of combat. Again, this is desperation, okay? This is out of desperation. Just tell chatters that you would tell Palestinians to get out if they had a way out and not just full-on encourage them to go to the front lines. Yeah, that is what I've said. I've actively worked with Palestinians that are still trapped inside of Gaza to try to get them out as well. So, no, this is something that I absolutely believe across the board, unconditionally.